damn, this view, my God. Pinch me, I am dreaming. All right, guys, we're out here at Hakone Skyline, driving the GRMN86. Let's go for a drive. Made some friends who are teaching me the best driving roads in the area. And what I want to explore today is the different stages of being a car enthusiast. Now, when I was younger, I think a lot of car guys are young. They read magazines. Well, maybe not so much anymore. Showing my age there. You watch videos. You live vicariously through the screen or through these various media to enjoy the cars that you idolize. But then as you get older, you start having more driving experiences, then you begin to refine your taste and you figure out what it is that you like about cars. Now, if you're driving, or rather I should say, if you're watching this video and you can drive, you're probably a driving enthusiast more so than a car enthusiast. And what I mean by that is you enjoy the experience behind the wheel. You enjoy the way a car makes you feel when you drive it. You may be interested in improving your driver's skill, as I feel like just about every car or every driving enthusiast wants to refine that skill and improve and go to the racetrack and all those things, and I can relate. I'm still working on improving my own driver's skill. And you then begin to realize that what you read about in the magazines or hear about on YouTube or on social media, on Instagram, TikTok, is not necessarily what you may believe makes for a great driving car. Now, I believe that a great driver's car is focused on inputs and experience more so than outright performance. And I think when you're younger, you care much more about stats, about numbers, about things that are measurable, because that's all you can really relate to. You can't relate to the experience of driving since you can't drive yet. So when you're younger, when you have less experience driving, you're going to focus much more on the stats. The 0 to 60, that was actually my big one, was 0 to 60 as a kid. I cared about 0 to 60 more than anything else. And the horsepower, of course, the quarter mile, top speed. Top speed is one of the most irrelevant numbers when it comes to driving. When it even comes to track days, right? You're rarely ever topping out your vehicle. That's what you focus on when you're younger. And I think that for this reason, many people who are less experienced or younger tend to overly focus on the stats, on the numbers, and under focus on things like the steering feel, the responsiveness, the shifter throws, the pedal box, the sounds, the engine, the... How come people don't really stay on their side here? I've been noticing that a lot of people on these on this road, which is laneless, right? They kind of just hug the center like this rather than going to the side. It's interesting. I always thought that. Anyways, I guess Japan is just like anywhere else in the world where you have some good drivers and some not so good drivers. So anyways, people who don't drive or people who just started driving and don't have maybe as much experience pushing a car to its limits, dealing with understeer and oversteer and how to correct them and how to extract the most out of a car on track, dancing with the car at its limits, they're generally the people who care the most. So when you start peeling this back and you start focusing on, well, what makes for a great driver's car and a great driving experience, you tend to find a clustering of vehicles in certain countries, which I think is quite fascinating. One of those countries is, of course, Japan. You also see that in, I think, the UK. Very much, not so much known for reliability like Japan, in Japanese cars, but more so the emotionality of a car. I'm talking V8 Vantage, I'm talking Lotus, essentially all of Lotus's lineup. Very connected, emotional. When it comes to German, most of them tend to be a little bit more, how do I say, clinical, more performance focused rather than theater focused. Now there are exceptions. GT Porsches are absolutely emotional and visceral and highly engaging. But the lower level Porsches can be a bit clinical. BMWs and Audis and Mercedes can also, they all have their little exceptions here and there. For the most part, they tend to be more clinical compared to British and Japanese cars, in my opinion. Again, there will be exceptions. AMG, GTR and such. Audi R8, even that car is actually not as emotional as I thought. The engine is the centerpiece, but that's a whole other conversation. You'll also see that passion and emotionality come through with the Italians, right? The Americans even have their own flavor of it, although those cars tend to be a lot heavier, and I feel like the inputs in most American cars are never quite to the same level of finesse and nuance as some of these other countries. On average, again, there are exceptions. And it's interesting because it's a reflection of the culture. So when you look at Japanese culture, a lot of it is focused on attention to detail and purity and the essence of something. When you look at their food, it's not about, like French and modern cuisine is taking a food and transforming it. You'll have some mixture of things that is now shaped into looking like a strawberry, and like a perfectly shaped and shiny strawberry that you bite into, and the outside shell is crunchy and crisp and sugary and sweet, and then the inside is like this soft, pillowy texture. That's more modern, saying how can we as humans change, like using the power that we have, the intellect, the technology, how can we change nature around us? Whereas Japanese culture is very much, let's take away everything else and focus on the essence. That's why you'll notice Japanese architecture is much simpler and more in harmony with nature. If you look at the food, sushi and such, right? It is simplicity. It is the essence of the fish. Even yakitori and such. It's not about, let me impress you with how much we can remove this one food source to this other thing that you eat. Let me instead take away the layers to give you the most pure essence and enjoyment of that foundational element. And you see that come across in their cars too. Now, in Japan, when they have the Miata, they have the what? The 1.5 liter engine here, and then in the US we needed the 2 liter because we care so much more about power, faster roads, larger roads, etc. But also just the culture. In America, I think we focus more on power. And in Japan, they're focused on the essence and the inputs of a car. Like even this GRMN86. Now this car is such an incredible driver's vehicle. The 86 and the BRZ of this generation were very much poo-pooed for the lackluster engine, but this car is vastly improved over the regular GT86, BRZ, and FRS, which I talk about in the dedicated review on this car, linked below. But they focus on the things that I think matter the most, having perfectly weighted inputs. Porsche GT cars do this immaculately. Modern Porsches, even non-GT cars, do this immaculately. Oh, thank you, sir. Now, the steering, the input of the steering, the precision, the lack of slop, the feedback, the feeling of the shifter, the pedal box, the seating position, all these little things come together and they give you, again, the purity of driving. I think the Mazda Miata, I own an ND, 2024 ND3 actually, and I think that very much summarizes the essence of driving a sports car. Front engine, rear wheel drive, double wishbone in the front, multi-link in the rear, and it is a naturally aspirated front engine rear wheel drive car that, you know, top down, it is just driving purity. So you'll find yourself, maybe like me, you start off caring a lot about stats, and once you start driving more cars, you realize, huh, like for me, I thought that BMWs were the peak. I used to idolize BMWs as a kid. And then I started driving more. I said, these are cool, I respect them, but I'm not getting the level of connectedness and the sports car focused nature from the chassis that I want. Because a lot of BMWs they start off as these base vehicles that are not sports cars, then they're tarted up when you put the M's. And then as you start driving more vehicles, you start noticing these clusterings of preferences. I find myself very much drawn towards Japanese and British sports cars. God damn, this view, my God. Pinch me, I am dreaming. So I find myself clustering to Japanese and British cars in terms of resonating with my preferences the most, with German cars following close behind, but it's mostly just like Porsche and Porsche GT products in particular that really resonate, as they do with just about everyone. Everyone loves GT Porsches. And I guess Italian cars, I don't have as much experience. When I do drive the higher end Italian cars like a Ferrari and such, absolutely that resonates. Although the price bracket just makes it more unattainable. And I used to think it was so silly and reductionistic to talk about an entire country's cars, because each of us are so diverse even within a single country, that how can you ever lump them together? But again, because of the culture, the cultural underpinnings of a country, you notice those patterns. You notice a clustering of Japanese car tendencies and traits and strengths and weaknesses, the same with British and German and so on and so forth. But my friends, let me know what you think with a comment down below. What's your favorite country when it comes to cars? Where did I get things wrong? Leave a comment below. Much love, and I'll see you all in that next one.